The contrasting fortunes of a rider in the Tour de France. On Sunday, Fabio Baldato won his first stage at Lannion. Yesterday, he finished in bandages after crashing in Le Havre. It was a day of accidents as riders personified the cruelty of this event. All along the road from Alençon, riders were left behind. The most spectacular crash came 2.5 kilometers from the finish. Among the fallers, Laurent Jalabert, the race leader. He lost 50 seconds and his yellow jersey. But two men did finish well satisfied. Mario Cipollini started in a yellow headscarf. Then he sprinted to victory in his famous yellow helmet. The most surprised member of the peloton, Yvon Gotti, he now leads overall by a single second. Britain's two riders, Max Chiandi and Sean Yates, both missed the spills yesterday and finished with the leaders, the 28th and 49th overall. And this morning the riders were moved away from Le Havre along the rugged coastline to Fecamp, where they faced the longest day in the saddle. Here's Paul Sherwin now to sketch us a picture of the new Maillot Jaune de Tour.
Every rider dreams of wearing the coveted yellow jersey. Today, the man given that chance is Yvon Gotti from Bergamo in Italy. The 5'10" Italian turned professional in 1991 and has never won a race since. A selfless worker for the team, earning around £40,000 a year compared with the £400,000 income of team leader Berzin, he's always ridden well in the multi-stage races, finishing 16th in last year's Tour of Italy, but he's never managed to pull off the big win. Today, thanks to the power of his Gay Whiz team, he can be repaid for all the sacrifices he's made for them, with the best prize any cyclist could ever want, a day in yellow.
And Gotti's facing this morning a nervous and long ride to defend just a 1 second overall lead. The journey between Fecamp and Dunkerque is 261 kilometers. It follows the coastline for much of the way and it finally finishes on the side of the English Channel. Only 177 riders of the 189 are just under a week ago at the start this morning, and they now face a long day as they leave town for the start proper, which was just outside of Fecamp. And the man in yellow, Yvon Gotti, a proud day for the Italian climber indeed. Well, the first sprint came at Benneval-Lagon after 70 kilometers, and the line was roaring again. Mario Cipollini winning ahead of Laurent Jalabert, so he must be okay after his crash yesterday, and Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov. Before the second sprint of the day, though, a bit of bad news indeed, and frustration for Fabio Baldato. He was the worst injured in that crash in Le Havre, and he's now out of the race. The 12 stitches in his face, I'm afraid, proving just that little bit too painful for him to continue.
Well, after a cloudy start to the day, the riders can expect a clear afternoon with the sun coming through and temperatures going over 20 degrees Celsius for the first time in this tour. The big advantage for the riders, though, is the 25 km/h tailwind, which comes from the southwest and should push them rapidly towards the finish in Dunkirk.
And so, on to the second sprint. After 148 kilometers, Abdu-Japarov this time getting the better of Cipollini, with Jalabert again in the frame, taking third place. Well, the bunch were together for that second sprint, but very shortly afterwards, the last climb of the day, only a small fourth category climb. That proved to be the springboard for Rolf Ehrmann of Switzerland to go clear on the Côte de Ubi. After 161 kilometers, he went ahead. Now, Ehrmann, lying 128th in this race, almost 7 minutes behind, actually picked up a time gain of over 2 minutes, but as we watch these pictures now, the big field is closing in rapidly. The last time check we had was just 25 seconds. I think we're going to see the lone figure of Rolf Ehrmann being reeled in now, not just by the Gay Whiz team, but also by the Novell team. Both riders, both teams have different reasons for bringing back Ehrmann.
Well, Rolf Ehrmann's lead at the moment is a mere 200 metres, having had at one time nearly 2 minutes lead over the main field. And I do feel that the Novell squad from Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov have been doing a lot of work, because Abdu has been very close to winning the stages so far. He lost out yesterday because of that crash, and I think what he would like to do is get the whole field together to Dunkirk to try and get some points back and get the green jersey for the most regular rider back off Mario Cipollini. This here is Rolf Ehrmann about to end his day at the front.
So it's been a good try by Rolf Ehrmann, but winner of the Tour of Luxembourg this year. He's not going to win this stage of the Tour de France today, because he has had to surrender to the chase, and you can even, and an attack by Motorola immediately. Looks like Steve Bauer's gone. Bauer has ripped away. Now that's a good tactic. Wait until the race have chased down a man who's away, and when they think that's it, lads, we can have a rest, then launch an attack. And Bauer's done just that.
Superb move. It was taken directly out of the handbook. The counter-attack, as soon as somebody gets caught, then you should just go straight over the top. An excellent move by Bauer, and this looks like Nicola Loda from the MG squad from Italy, who's got onto Bauer's wheel, and that would be good. He's a teammate of Rolf Yearman, who's been in the front for so long, but behind, what they will do now is start to organise themselves and chase these riders down slowly.
Well, how quick has that changed now? Steve Bauer has put in an attack here, and Loda has taken his wheel. And the field, judging by the long, thin point of the arrow at the head of the peloton there, have taken this attack very seriously indeed and launched a counter-offensive. So Yearman's attack lasted for 60 kilometres. Steve Bauer now trying to move clear of the field. Well, we saw earlier the retirement of Fabio Baldato. We now have to report the retirement of the champion of Belgium, Wilfried Nelissen, also involved in that bad pile-up on the approach to Le Havre yesterday evening. And Nelissen off the back of the field early today. He raced for a long time before he was absolutely certain he could not continue. At one stage he was riding over 6 minutes behind the field, and a few moments ago he took the decision to pull out of the Tour.
Well, there's a chance to see just how close these riders will ride together there. Bauer getting into the slipstream of Loda, because what he wants to do when he's done his turn at the front is recuperate just a little bit. A rider behind the one in front will save something like 20 or 30% of his energy, so it gives him just a little bit of a breather before he goes back to the front again and sets up the pace. Now you can see the light blue jerseys of the Mercatoni team of Mario Cipollini coming to the front. The Polti riders there too. Nobody wants a breakaway today. It seems as if everybody wants to get to Dunkirk as quickly as possible and let the sprinters have another day.
Mercatoni Uno are the riders in the yellow crash helmets, and the gap is 24 seconds, so it is edging forward a little bit, mostly because of the power here of Steve Bauer, a former yellow jersey of the Tour de France and a fourth place finisher overall too in Paris. And the other rider, Nicola Loda, riding his first Tour de France and doesn't seem too happy. And Bauer, in fact, is very unhappy, because he's clearly said one or two, I would think, selected Italian words there, Paul, to ask him to come past.
Well, the time split now 22 seconds for these two riders, and you can see by the long straight line of the main field here that the hammer is really down at the moment. Nobody shirking the work at the front. The Gawies team doing an awful lot of work, but also Novell there, and every now and again when the time comes possible, the Mercatoni Uno squad of Mario Cipollini are mixing it with these riders at the front.
Well, they have a nice wide road to vent their anger today, the men of the Tour, rather than the bumpy and tortuous approach to the finish yesterday. And the Gawies boys are having another little rehearsal here for their team time trial racing, because they're all doing their share of the work. Ivan Gotti in yellow by a single second from his teammate Bjarne Riis off to the right there. We're now approaching the third and final bonus sprint of the day at Luberg, and this one coming after 233 kilometers of racing, 28 kilometers from the finish. And the bonus times aren't going to really help either of these two riders, but it will of course help the leader of the Tour de France, Gotti, by that single second, because it means two riders who don't really matter for the overall at this stage of the race are taking away the time bonuses, and that will help him. Bauer goes through first. He gets the small cash prize on the line, and Loda follows him. And here's the big sprint now. Now, will we see Abdou Japarov take it? Yes, we will. Abdou Japarov takes the third place. More valuable points for the green jersey. And I think Cipollini will need to win the stage tonight to keep the green leaders' jersey. So the race is still in pursuit of the two leaders, and they're coming down to the closing kilometers. We'll take a break.
At 261 kilometres, today's stage is the longest in the Tour, but by historical standards it's a prologue. In 1924, not only was the longest stage longer than today's, so was the shortest. Up year after year, and the longest of the lot was Le Sable d'Olonne to Bayonne, a ride just 18 kilometres short of the 500 mark. The last time it appeared on the route was 1924, which must have produced a sigh of relief amongst the dehydrated peloton. Not that the rest of that year's tour was exactly a Sunday morning ride. The shortest stage, Nice to Briançon, was 275 kilometres, 14k longer than today. Unfortunately for the riders, the Tour of the 20s never came through Fecamp. Otherwise, they could have had a reviving drop of the local speciality. Strictly for medicinal purposes, of course. The local speciality is Benedictine, first produced here in the 7th century by the monks of the same name. It started as a cold cure, a sort of medieval night nurse. These days, though, it's big business, and the Palais de Benedictine is Fecamp's big tourist attraction. But apart from a few old relics, there's not much sign of the monks. Good grief, Brother Francois went out for lunch sometime in the late 16th century, hasn't been back. I'll have to have a word with the abbot about that. In fact, the abbot got out of the Benedictine business years ago, along with the rest of the order. Now the drink is produced by a group who believe a little less in self-denial, the Brotherhood of Bacardi. Production's been modernised too since the brothers brewed their last batch. Still, the old-fashioned image packs the punters in for daily tours, which offer the chance to see, smell and touch the ingredients. Of course, all they really want to do is get to the end and taste. And after just enough to whet the appetite, they're steered expertly into the ecclesiastical off-licence and shelves full of everything from Benedictine chocolates to bottles of B&B, a lethal ready mix of Benedictine and brandy. If your memory fails you the next morning, there's also Benedictine the video in a variety of formats. It's all got more to do with mammon than God these days. About the only thing that hasn't changed is the recipe. Although, to be on the safe side, I thought I'd check. Yep, it's that old telly classic, the cut to the presenter just as he finishes taking a sip of something. And actually, for medieval night nurse, it's not bad. The riders, though, have long since left this distillery behind. They're on the road to Dunkirk. Let's catch up with them.
Well, thanks, Gary. In fact, the riders have gone so quickly today, they are now only about 24 kilometres from the finish. And the gap, the two escapers, Steve Bauer and Nicola Loda, are still ahead, and they're hovering at around about 30 seconds. So there's still a chance for Bauer.
This season, he really seems to have come back. He's 35 years of age now and would like to ride for a couple more years. And this today would really put the icing on the cake for him if he could get a stage victory in the Tour de France. He won one back in 1988. He's held the yellow jersey in the Tour, but since then he's not been able to get a stage win.
And there's our friend, the Devil, who always stands inside the last 20 kilometres. And a little bit of a reaction the other day from the riders caused a crash, actually. One of the riders hit a reservation looking across at the Devil, and that was Chiterio, who was left sitting in the road. But it looks as though they are thinking twice here about continuing.
I think they looked over their shoulders there and they noticed that they weren't opening up any gap at all and figured that at the moment they really are making a useless effort. You see, both riders have been trying for the last 10-15 kilometres to get a gap, and it's all come back together as we look at them now.
And there's a tyre here gone down, and this is a puncture to the Castorama Giron. And Giron is, well, it really has turned out this last couple of days not to be his Tour. The first 2 days in yellow. Yesterday he decided to drop off and nurse back to the race two sick teammates and lost nearly 14 minutes in the process, and now he's punctured when the race is completely flat out. And this is a TVM rider. Now the man who's been riding so well on this team is Jelle Nijdam, and it might well be Jelle Nijdam who has tried to go off the front of this group.
I think that was
and this has been a crash again, and look at this, because this is Giron on the floor now. Now, what on earth has happened? He was chasing, and all of a sudden, and here's what happened. Giron, trying to get back to the main field, has overcooked the corner here and lost it and gone down. And my goodness me, again lucky that the following car did not hit him. Well, that is a terrible shame for Jackie Giron, but it is amazing how riders are falling off in this year's Tour de France.
And in fact, that was Jelle Nijdam who got away there. It looks like Johan Bruneel, a man from Belgium on the Once squad, and Eugenie Berzine, and that is extremely dangerous. I can imagine there's going to be an awful lot of alarm bells in the main field at the moment, because Berzine is pretending to do the work of his teammate, the policeman, and he may well walk away and get a few more seconds on the rest of the group here.
But the field have quickly calculated who those three riders are up there with Nijdam, and decided it was too dangerous to allow any leeway at all. But that was a nice move by Evgeny Berzine, and that to me is a man who has thoughts on doing something in this Tour de France, and Indurain will have taken note of that.
And that was definitely an alarm bell, because Miguel Indurain has moved right to the front of the main field here. Always attentive, Indurain, in this year's Tour de France. When we get to the final 20 or 30 kilometres, he is never very far away.
Oh, there's been another pile-up at the back. Now, what is going on? This is another touch of wheels, again at the rear of the field.
And one of the men in that crash is Armand de las Cuevas, the #1 favourite from the Castorama squad, the slightly balding rider just in front of this man here, and he was going to have an awful hard time. He's being pushed by his teammate at the moment. He's got to get back in and not lose any time.
And de las Cuevas only just returning from a broken collarbone as well, and he is down once more. This is amazing. That looks like Olaf Ludwig, the big sprinter, who's now powering away. You see his left leg bandaged. Max Chiandri, one of the 2 British riders in the race. And this is now a very, very interesting move indeed, because I think Giovanni Fidanza splashed through the camera there from the Polti team, who is a very good sprinter. But Chiandri should handle him in the sprint, shouldn't he, Paul?
Chiandri's an excellent sprinter, especially from a small group like this. But Olaf Ludwig was one of the fastest men in the world, and we've got now a breakaway of sprinters, so this is quite incredible. Eric van der Aarden has seen the gap, he's seen them looking at each other, and he's decided, I'm not waiting, I'm going to try and go it on my own. And this is an excellent move by van der Aarden. Chiandri didn't want to work there because he was with Ludwig, and van der Aarden may well get the gap.
Well, my goodness me, van der Aarden has flown away. Now they're going to have to reorganize themselves very, very quickly here, as van der Aarden goes towards the finish with 4 kilometers to go. This is his big effort now, and the field are having to chase him down.
It's going to be extremely difficult for Eric van der Aarden to stay away on roads like this, because you can see they're very long and very straight, and the whole field have got their hair in front of them. They will chase him down as much as they can. The sprinters will try and organise themselves, but there seems to be an awful lot of chaos in the main field today. Mercatone Uno, who have controlled the races over the last few kilometres in the last 2 days, seem to have left it to the other teams, and the main field spreading out all over the road. Cipollini will be in there somewhere looking for a lead out.
Well, if you spot Cipollini before we do, he's the rider in the green jersey as leader of this race on points. But to keep it today, he must finish ahead of Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov in the finish, because they are equal on those points scored. There's the figure of Eric van der Aarden. Sorry about the little bit of picture breakup you're experiencing. This is due to the live microwave link-ups that we do to the helicopters to bring you these pictures. And Eric van der Aarden, I'm afraid, will be seeing a breakup of different type now. Stars in his eyes, I would think, because the race is all around him at the 3 kilometre to go point.
Well, it's all over there for Eric van der Aarden. If there could have only been 1 or 2 more corners, he could have used the fact that he was a lone leader in front of this whole pack to open up a little bit of a gap. But the speed with which everybody was coming, he could not resist for too long. Gianni Bugno, the Italian champion, trying to go clear now, followed by one of the Once riders. Looks very much as if that might be the shape of Neil Stevens, the Australian rider, who's done an awful lot of work on the stage so far.
Yes, I'll go with that. It looks as though Stevens has got the wheel of Bugno to try and pull him back into the field, because Jalabert is Stevens' sprinter, and he's the rider he would like to see make the most of this. But Indurain again is still mixing it. He is lying in 3rd place. There he is, watching everything, you know. And Indurain has never won a road racing stage of the Tour de France since he started his winning sequence of the Tours in 1991. All of his stages have come in time trials, and I wonder if he wants a road race win.
Well, I wonder if he does, because he's actually had a couple of bunch sprint wins this year in some of the lesser races in Spain, and it may well be that Miguel thinks he's strong enough to take on the sprint at the moment. 2 kilometres to go. He's riding at the front. He's riding like a man possessed, as if he is looking for that stage victory, but he can't rival the speed of a man like Mario Cipollini. Neil Stevens at the front at the moment in the pink jersey, followed by Yaroslav Ekimov, the Novell rider from Russia.
Little Neil keeping the pace as high as possible, so we must watch out for the arrival soon of Laurent Jalabert, because that's why Neil Stevens is doing all of this. The brilliant Australian champion who won the title for only the 2nd time in his career down in Melbourne, Australia in January this year.
Jesper Skibby from the TVM squad with the red, yellow and blue jersey, moving to the front now, looking over his shoulder to see if he has a sprinter there. They have an excellent sprinter, Jerome Blijlevens, on their squad, who is a young man. He's won some very good races this year, but he hasn't managed to come to the front in the Tour de France sprint so far. But everybody mixing it there. Cipollini's green jersey's in there. Johan Mesure is not very far back either.
Well, Cipollini is on the left side of our picture as we look at the riders. But they're giving him a rough ride in the heart of the pack at the moment as they come for 1 kilometre to go now. And again, the riders are trying to break up this pack, but it's all over now. The sprinters are going to have the day. There's Cipollini. He always waits. He times his finish to perfection. He's about 4th or 5th down the line now. And Cipollini's going to have to read this one to perfection again. It is a pure sprinter's finish. Very straight indeed. And Giovanni Lombardi is also going to try and get in on the act now as he comes up towards the front. He's being led out too. Vercatoni Unu have the lead-out man for Cipollini. Cipollini lies in 4th place. He follows his lead-out rider across the road. He isolates the other two on the left who sit up now. The sprint has begun here. Johan Museo is leading out for the line. Cipollini still sits there waiting. And Zabel is on his back wheel too. Eric Zabel is going to take him on. Moncassin is coming as well. So this is going to be a great sprint now. Abdu Japarov is now challenging Cipollini. Winner will take the green jersey as they come to the line. I think it's Blylavens who's coming too. In the TVM colours, and Blylavens gets it. There's a turn up for the bucket. He doesn't believe it. He's gone past our comedy position. His face is a picture. He doesn't believe he's just won a stage of the Tour de France. What a great victory. And Cipollini, the first word you'll say, Paul, who on earth was that?
Well, that will be a big shock for Mario Cipollini to see Blylavens coming through. He's hardly raced against that man this year, but he does have an incredible turn of speed. He won a couple of stages in the Ruta del Sol at the start of the year, and I don't think he ever dreamed that he could win a stage in the Tour de France like that.
And here is the sprint finish as Blylavens of TVM, this newcomer to racing as a professional, really did turn on the finish in style. They scrabbled for his wheel, both Moncassin and Abdu Japarov, while on the right of our picture was Mario Cipollini in green and Zabel off to the right. It was a clear win for the young man from Holland, and that is a feather in his hat. And so a perfectly judged sprint by the young Dutch rider Jeroen Blylavens from the TVM squad. He gets in just ahead of Jan Zorada, Eric Zabel, Frédéric Moncassin and Mario Cipollini, only 5th this time. For Jeroen Blylavens, though, the first big win of his career, and he salutes the crowd tonight here in Dunkirk. Overall, in the end, there was no change at all among the leaders, and even Gotti holds on to that 1 second advantage over his teammate Bjarne Rice. And look at this. Normally when the yellow jersey crosses the line, he's mobbed by the photographers and the press, but it seems his popularity here is yet to catch on. One man who has had, though, his second first in a Tour is Dmitry Konishev. He was the first Russian rider to win a stage a few years ago. Now he's the first Russian rider to lead in the King of the Mountains competition. And to complete the set of leaders' jerseys, Mario Cipollini tonight is keeping his green jersey because he finished in front of Jamaluddin Abdu Japarov. And thanks to the Tour organisation, you could win yourself now a complete set of those leaders' jerseys if you correctly predict the winner of Sunday's time trial stage. When you've made your selection, the number to phone is 0891 44 44 77. And the best of luck. That's a great prize. Well, we thought all of the riders had made it safely over that last kilometre, but in fact there was a crash, and Sean Yates was among the fallers.
I mean, mine was a stupid crash. Lance was in a big crash, and we were waiting for him, and I was just looking around, and I touched the guy really in front, and I lost balance and came down, so it was really stupid. It was my fault totally.
Do you think it's because riders are tired, or that riders are actually taking too many risks to try and get a stage victory?
I think it's just so fast, you know. These days it's just faster and faster, and there's no security, you know, for bike riders, and it's just too many obstacles. So there's bound to be a lot of crashes.
Sean Yates is riding his 12th Tour de France, and let's hope he is among the starters when we leave Dunkirk tomorrow, bound for Belgium. Until tomorrow night, goodbye.